Welcome back to another Blkcity Coffee vlog. In this video, we're continuing our journey of roasting and experimenting and finding out how to roast this decaf. So we're gonna cup this today, but before we get into that, I thought that we should kind of discuss what decaf is, or the one that I'm in particularly roasting, and what we can do is compare it to a couple of greens that I have here. Hold on, let me switch this. Move this over. Actually, I should boil my water. We just roasted 3 batches of the decaf. Now, mind you, if you didn't watch that video, you can go back and watch that. The biggest issue that I had was trying to roast on color. So you have smell, you have sound, you have time, you have all these other variables, but color is a variable that's super important when you roast a typical coffee, like a washed or natural, anything like that, right? Because you're looking for color change, you're looking for green to yellow transition, you're looking for doneness, you're looking for all those kinds of things, right? So as you can see here, we have 3 samples of green. Now, which one do you think is the decaf? It's this guy right here. So if we compare this to, this is a decaf, and to preface all of this, this is Swiss water decaf. So when I was doing my little bit of research into roasting decaf and how different it would be, I came across basically 2 ways. And the original way, the way that has been, I think that most people kind of know about, is the solvent way, the chemical way, using a chemical to take out the caffeine of the coffee in the grain, right? I didn't research too much about that chemical stuff because I was already in the mindset of what was available to me, and I source all of my beans from Bodhi Leaf Coffee, and they sell Swiss water processed decaf. And Swiss Water is actually a brand, right? It's actually a company, and they're based in Canada. And I'll link to you guys in the description, and they can describe for you how they decaffeinate coffee. But it's basically a 2-step process on a macro scale, where they, after receiving a washed green like this, so they'll receive a green like this, and this is a typical washed Honduras. So they receive this green here, and then they have to rehydrate it with Swiss water, right? So the water from the Alps or whatever it is, super clean water, I guess, is what they use there in Canada. And then through a process of washing or whatever that they do, again, I'll link to you guys in the description what they do. The caffeine is removed 99.9%. So a 0.01% left of caffeine in there. Very, very minuscule. Probably won't affect anyone who is having problems with caffeine or anything like that, right? Everyone's different, so you never know. But that is the process. And then they have to dry it once again till it becomes to this product here. So it's what they call a rehydrate, because it's probably been processed already, a rehydrate and another drying process. So it's basically adding 2 more steps into the whole process of processing coffee in general, right? So if you know about washed or if you know about natural, there's 2 more steps in that process before it gets to the roaster, which is somebody like me. So it's couple shades, and this is a decaf Swiss water Honduras. So the same, coming from the same, I think coming from the same region. I can't be sure about that. I'd have to double check that. But as you can see, like, this color and the feel of it as well is different. So it's quite a bit darker. It's really hard to see those tinges of green, because if you compare it to this guy, which is a natural, and most naturals, they have this sort of, they still have that, a lot more of that parchment left on there, because a natural coffee has been left out in the sun to ferment, and the cherry just kind of ferments and it sticks there to the coffee bean, right? And that's why you see these sort of orange color, but you still clearly see the green tinges of this, you know, quote unquote green bean. So comparing these, it's still really, I'd say, it's easier to roast on the variable of color. versus this guy. It's like, it's just a very muddy, I'd say, now that I'm looking at it in nice, sunlight, a muddy army green, but more on the muddy gray side. And when you pop it in the roaster, and I was going through the roast, and I think maybe next time I'll have like second camera on the sight glass so you could see the color changes of that. And I'm for sure gonna roast this again pretty quickly, because I hit up Tim from Bodhi Leaf Coffee to help me out, because one of the biggest things other than color change going throughout the whole roast was I didn't get a strong first crack. I got a very gentle one in my first batch, almost non-existent one in my second batch, and we kind of called that a wash. And I couldn't even save that data on the RoastPath. And then I did it for a third time, and again got a very, very, if anything, quiet first crack. So we're gonna look at the data. I'm gonna show you what I did, and it was just very tricky. So it didn't behave like a natural for me, and maybe I was overthinking it. I was charging at $375 and then charging again at $350, which didn't really seem to affect my turnaround time, which was around 148, 143, like this. So I was like, it's running very quickly. So I'm still like, sort of lost in the woods, so to speak. So until I get that profile back from Tim, then we're gonna reassess and everything. But it's still cool and fun to come in here blind and just be like, what happened? Like, what's up? Okay, so that's the thing with decaf. The water has now warmed up. I'm gonna go grind all of our cupping samples here, and then we're gonna cup. I actually wanted to show you, I think I'll just capture another. I'll show you what the batches look like when they were roasted. So I'll put up on the screen right now, we have batches 1, 2, and 3. Number 2, I would call a wash. We didn't even have any signs of a first crack, and that was kind of like alarming to me. But when I dropped the beans, and I all finished them around a full city sort of level. So if we look at them, a full city to full city plus level on all 3 roasts. And I was basically roasting on time, experience, what was going on in the data on my RoastPath thing. And it was really off-putting, or I would say sort of like, it just messed with you a lot because it was moving so quickly. So as I was going through the roast, I'm like, okay, I should be hitting this at this time. It was still kind of behaving like still early in the roast. So for example, around 8 minutes 30, it was still behaving like a coffee that had only been in there for 6 minutes or something like that. So I was like, did I actually charge too low? But I don't know. It was just super confusing when I was roasting it, and what I was getting back in the trier and the time and everything put together, I was like, but it looks good. It looks like a nice roasted bean. There's no scorching, there's no tipping, there's no facing. So I didn't burn the coffee, but I suspect that it could have baked it. So that could be something for us to kind of watch out for. And is my palate refined enough to pick that up? I'm sure we'll taste something that is flat, maybe over roasted. I definitely think it'll be on the roastier side and more flatter side, but those are my presumptions going in. So we're gonna just see. Minute left here on the brew. Then we're going to break the crust and go through the whole motion. Okay, cool. Okay. Fragrance is the same. And my nose is not, one nostril is always kind of clogged, so I never really pick up anything other than like a very mature apricot and like cardboard when I do that, and I'm, you know, smelling the fragrance of it. Okay, yeah, it's good. All right. So at least on that front, there's no change. Okay. First impression, one is flat, but not terrible. Two, better. Three, better. So 2 and 3, although, you know, when I was telling you, the second roast I called a wash, and I was like, what the hell's going on? And I just went through it. I couldn't save the data because I never was able to hit the button for first crack. I was like, I don't hear anything, dude. And I was right there. I was right next to the drum trying to listen, and I would hear outlier cracks. And so maybe I did have a first crack, but it was just a very quiet one. And I remember way back in the day when I first started roasting, like to my hot top days, when they were saying that certain beans have quieter first cracks. And maybe that's because of the sort of gentle roasting versus, you know, when you hit it, when you charge something 380 and above, you're getting and you're roasting that way, like for a washed coffee, for example, you get a very nice, loud, rolling first crack. So perhaps that's what happened here. And I'm going to try to confirm all my little questions with Tim from Bodhi and see what their experience is. Because the further I start to read, they're like, yeah, you know, when you're roasting decaf, you're not relying on color anymore, which is it's so crazy. It's like it's kind of roasting blind. So if you didn't have a trier and if you didn't have a sight glass, which I don't think it's too far-fetched or too weird, because I'm sure way back in the day, they didn't have any of that stuff. And they were just putting that thing in a drum and then like heating it up, and then it gets hot and they're like, oh wow, it's cooked. So it's interesting and it's fun. Okay, so that was tasting it on right off, like super hot, right? So as cupping protocol, you're going to keep tasting, cupping as the thing keeps cooling. And if coffees start to taste better as they cool, that's a better coffee, okay? Because temperature masks flavor. All right, we're going to start from here again. Yeah, number 3. Mm-hmm. 2's flatter now. 1 is improving. Dude, I'm very happy with these actually. Okay, I'm gonna throw up the roast curves for all 3 of these. So boom, throw it up right there for you guys to compare. Oh, sorry, the second one we couldn't, right? I forgot, but it's very similar to the ones that you're seeing on the screen right now. And I have this sort of weird tail coming off towards the last half of the roast. And that's just because I was, in all three of these, I was like, hello, where's my first crack, right? And I'm listening here, and I'm listening. And for one of them, you can see like the first crack was around 10 minutes. And I was like, that's not terribly late, right? In terms of like if I'm gonna roast a full city plus or going into a darker roast, right? Like that's not terrible. So, but it always kind of like makes me nervous because, not nervous, but just like, hey, where's my first crack? Where is it at? Where are my outlier cracks? And as the thing was going, I was just like, you know what? Like, I'm just gonna call it first crack just so the software can record it. Because otherwise, with this software, with RoastPath, if you don't hit a first crack, and say you drop the coffee, it doesn't even, for me anyway, in my experience when I was using it, I couldn't even hit the drop button to signify that the roast is done. And if you don't do that, you can't save it because then the save button doesn't pop up for you. So that's an issue. Like, I think you should still be able to save shitty roast profiles or roast profiles that went awry, you know, that weren't done well. So you could go back and you can be like, okay, like here's what happened, right? But yeah. Okay, enough chatting. Round 3. Start from the top. Okay, cool. So number 1 is improving as it's cooling. Good sign. Yep. Yeah. Fruity, round. Nice. I mean, they're great. So in my experience and going off, if, you know, not kind of like being tied to or married to all of the rules of roasting. And when I was roasting, I was just like, okay, I'm hitting all of these marks at least. All of these marks I'm hitting, except for color. I'm not really sure. You know, I can't tell you a solid green to yellow transition. Maybe I need more light when I'm roasting, because I like to turn off the light and just have the light of the roaster going. So I will try that again another time and just see. But it looks like they're not ruined and they're good coffees. They taste really good. I don't see anything wrong with them, actually. This one, right, it was a little like flatter when it was piping hot, but now that it's cooled down, it's sort of like getting its body, it's getting its fruit, it's getting all these things. These were brighter when they were piping hot, and now they're kind of coming around and becoming more balanced. And this first one I charged at, I think, $3.75, but that was from a cold roaster. It's hot as hell in the garage, so it was actually able to maintain a lot of heat, and I didn't have any downtime in between each of these roasts. So I was running it kind of like a production roaster, like just back to back, just hitting it, charging the next batch before even dropping the last one, right? So production roasting. But fortunately, I think the machine is the way that it's positioned now, it's able to retain that heat a lot, in a lot more constant fashion. So it's really nice. I think I had really little discrepancy of heat throughout each of these roasts, even though this one I charge at $3.75 and then these two $3.50. So actually, that's really cool. That's really good. So now I'm gonna go and cup, and I'm gonna go find my flavors and then write them down. If there is a demand for it, let me know in the comments if decaf is something that you would be interested in. I'll put out a small batch, and then if it does well, then maybe we will buy that in the next round of greens. And some of you may be asking, why the hell would I be drinking decaf? All right, so we're gonna get into that after this little cupping here. Okay. So the fruit that screams to me in all of these is cherry. What kind of cherry? A very mature cherry. So a dark red cherry. I found that when I'm trying to put vocabulary to the things that I'm tasting, which if you've been with the channel for a minute, you've been able to tell that my vocabulary is very small in terms of pairing it to what I'm tasting. So what I like to do is start from the big picture, which is like, what is the big picture flavor note that I'm getting? So in my mind, I like to break it down so that I could help myself become better at my vocab. So it's like cherry. Okay, what kind of cherry? Is it like a tart cherry? Is it a old cherry? Is it a rotten cherry, right? So start to break things down like that. And then writing those things down, going back and tasting, and then like that. So sort of scale in the mind of like big picture, and then chisel away what's the finer thing, and then chisel away again what's the finer thing, and then maybe come find me in a year and I'll have a better vocabulary. So cherry, a mature cherry, a dark cherry. Okay, that's it. And then that's it. If that's all I get, that's all I get, and that's cool. So come back and taste some more. And like apricot, dried apricot. Where's my pen? Dried apricot. Not a particularly sweet one, like a semi-sweet one. Semi-sweet. In the scale of acidity to sweetness, it is on the sweeter scale, on the sweeter side, and that comes from the roast profile itself being 13 minutes and more. Which, how long was this one? About 13 minutes. So they were all like 13 minutes, 14 minutes. I think one of them was like 15. Okay, they're all probably going to be around 13. So 13 is, in my book, with this roast, just a full city. And I think the second one, which we didn't get to save, was like a full city plus. And that one is actually really good. The one that I was thinking it was a wash. So isn't that so cool? So you're roasting, you think you messed up, you think this and that, and then you should always, like I said in the video, reserve your judgment until you cup. Because you don't know. Maybe it's a serendipitous thing. Maybe your intuition was right when you were roasting. Okay, semi-sweet. Okay, so that's the fruit that's coming out to me. Let's see what's the base of that. Like a mushroom. Like a meaty shiitake mushroom. This guy is the flatter one, the first one, roasted at 375 charge, and then probably it was my fastest one. I think it was like 13.6, right? 13 minutes, 6 seconds. And I think throughout, somewhere along there, I baked it. I think towards the tail end or something like that. Or maybe it was just a cold machine, right? And it wasn't able to sort of like hold its temperature correctly. The second one is always, really good. The one that I thought was a mess up. It's actually the most developed out of the three. And then the third one, I was getting a little, like the steam let out of me a little bit, like losing a little gas in my tank. Like And like I was thinking about this one. I was hung up on this one and I couldn't, it was like I couldn't be present with the third one because I was thinking that I messed that one up, you know, and then I was like, if I messed it up, I don't know exactly how I messed it up. So going into this next roast, I'm again maybe making the same mistake. And that can sort of mess with you when you're trying to be present and just roast a good coffee in that time, right? I think that's a good lesson for me. So like thinking, preemptively thinking I messed up on something in a last roast and letting it hang me up on the one that I'm currently roasting, I think that's the lesson right there. So like whatever happened in the past is like, okay, leave it. Like, what are we gonna do right here? Did we learn anything? Let's just execute on that and be confident with those little steps that I'm gonna execute. But okay, so the base I was thinking mushroom, right? Shiitake, mushroom. I always have a tendency to think of graham cracker when we're going into full city roasts. There's a sort of like buttery graham crackery thing. Brown butter. That's what the word is. Brown butter. Brown butter, graham cracker. Cool. Yeah, that feels good. That feels good. That feels whole in what I'm tasting and putting words to what I'm tasting. Okay. Wow, cool. That was fun. To answer your question of why the heck would you even drink decaf? Okay, so if you've been following the channel for a little bit, I let you guys know that I was interested in roasting decaf for my mom. And I was like, cool, Mom, whenever I shop for that, I'll get to it. and then, of course, to give me a little motivation, I went through a little bit of like health issues where I couldn't drink coffee. So I'm going on a solid week and a day of not having coffee. And I'm doing okay. I think I've come out the worst of it. I'm done with the worst of it now, and now is just trying to fix a lot of other things not related to coffee so that I can actually have coffee in the future. But for the time being, decaf is something for me to maybe consume in the short term. And I was always intrigued of it just because of the roasting. How do you roast decaf? I knew that decaf was this sort of like, well, what are they doing? They taking out the caffeine? Why would you do that, right? And then I thought, well, how would that affect the roast process? And me being a new roaster, I'm just very intrigued and very interested in anything having to do with roasting. And if I can get my hands on stuff that's different or weird or cool, I think it's always a great learning experience. So finally, I found a decaf that would be suitable for us to experiment with, especially since I already had a whole bunch of Honduras green washed, regular, right? Regular green here, and then we could compare it to the decaf, and I thought that would make a great piece of content that I could share with you guys. So that's what we did. And lo and behold, with my research, I found that there are two ways that you can have decaf, either the solvent chemical way of taking out the caffeine, or this new fandangled way, which is Swiss water process. Again, all links will be in the description so you can find out a little bit for yourself. If you're a roaster, I think it'd be super fun if you dive into that and maybe have like a, learn a little bit about that and being able to roast without relying on color so much. That's the fun part. And then going back and then just like cupping it and doing what I did here. This was super fun. With decaf having virtually no caffeine, but still retaining origin quality, which is what Swiss water process promotes. That's always very interesting too. So I think our next test will be, I don't have anything fresh right now of a Honduras sitting around. I would have loved to compare Honduras washed, regular caffeinated, and cup that against my decaf. But we will do that next time on another vlog. But thank you so much for joining me. I'll get back to you guys on another, we're gonna be roasting decaf again at some point when I talk to Tim and he gets back to me, but I am not mad at this. I just really wanna know what happened with first crack, and is it just a very, very, very silent, quiet first crack? Is that what I heard? Those little pops? Or is there something more? Okay, so we'll find out next time on another vlog. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. Thanks for supporting. See you next time. Bye.